All right, folks, it's time for world politics, and I see I've got Sasha Starr with me, and I've also got John, and I can hear John this time. So it looks like we've got a whole Canadian party going on. So Sasha will be glad to know that John is actually from Canada and was following some of our founder Nick Palveda's post and all along those lines. But let me get to some of the political things that are happening around the world, and I'll bring in Sasha and all in that space and see what he's got to say about some of these political stories. Supreme Court hears arguments on Trump's order to end birthright citizenship. So the Supreme Court is hearing historical arguments on birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court may pick the worst possible case to cede more power to Trump. So that is what some people are saying. So Trump's birthright order gets frosty reception, that according to the fine folks at Politico, but justices appear ready to limit nationwide blocks. And peace breakthrough unlikely as Putin declines to meet Zelensky in Turkey. This was reported about an hour ago. Officials from Russia and Ukraine are in Turkey, but will peace talks take place? Zelensky sends team for peace talks, but says Russia is not serious enough. So definitely that is something going on, and I know that definitely President Trump has been talking about trying to have some peace talks as well. So we'll see if that conflict ends. And of course, there are conflicts in other parts of the world, such as I think Pakistan and India are in that ceasefire. And of course, there are conflicts like Eritrea and Ethiopia, and of course, Israel and the various Arab nations. So definitely a lot's going on in that space. Trump is promising to strengthen ties with United Arab Emirates on his Gulf tour. So that is something else that is going on in the political front and along those lines. So definitely that is something that people are talking about and in that way. So also President Trump is visiting UAE after stops in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. And in Abu Dhabi, Trump makes his first visit to a mosque as president. So he's definitely there and talking to the mosque and everything like that. I was actually doing a history talk here at the Hayti Heritage Center, one of the cultural centers that I work at, and a young lady actually asked me where the mosques were here in Durham, North Carolina, and if it was safe to be in Durham, because Durham sometimes has a reputation of violence, and I think she might have also been asking without asking if it was safe for her to go to a mosque and everything like that. So it was definitely an interesting conversation, not one I was totally expecting and all in that way, but it was still fascinating. Trump says the U.S. and Iran have sort of agreed on the terms for a nuclear deal. So in his final Qatar stop, Trump hopes for a Iranian nuclear deal and a ceasefire in Ukraine. So this was reported about an hour ago. And oil prices fall after Trump says deal with Iran is close. So definitely that's something else going on as well. And 54 people were killed in an overnight airstrike on southern Gaza City, hospitals say. So Israeli strikes killed dozens in Gaza, according to the health ministry in that particular area. So a lot's going on, including a Ukrainian man charged with arson after a fire at Keir Starmer's house. And Keir Starmer is, of course, the leader and the prime minister there in the UK. So a Ukrainian is charged after fires at Prime Minister Keir Starmer's properties. So that's something else that people are talking about as well. And Secretary Marco Rubio meets Syria's foreign minister in another sign of warming ties. So meeting Syrian foreign minister, Rubio welcomes Damascus calls for peace with Israel. Too good to be true. Investors are eyeing Syria after Trump sanction moves. So there's a lot going on in there, including Britain says it's talking with some countries to set up migrant return hubs. So Starmer reveals plans to send refused asylum seekers to overseas return hubs. Prime Minister's Albania trip shows tricky paths on migration. So migration isn't just an issue here in the States, but it's an issue in other parts of the world as well. I'm going to bring in my regular guy from Canada, that being Sasha Starr, see what he's got to say about some of these discussions and all along those lines. And Sasha, you'll be glad to know you've got a fellow Canadian on. So John, who we couldn't get on before, is actually from Canada. He's been following some of the posts of our leader, that being Nick Palveda. And as he was following those posts, he wanted to jump on in these conversations and learn what we're all about and everything like that, because some of the conversations and some of the things that Nick was saying, he might have found to be not as tongue in cheek as we take them to be. And I'm not saying that he's always tongue in cheek, but I do know that sometimes Nick says things tongue in cheek. But John, glad to have you here. Glad that we're able to hear you this time around and all along those lines. And Sasha Starr, as I said, is the uh, has done many podcasts. He's a chess master. He's a master of many things, including having served on a ship in a cruise and done a lot of other businesses and all along those lines. And on Pod TV, he runs the Ukrainian Russia China show, but he's going to go on vacation. So that show will go on hiatus for a little bit. But the Ukrainian Russia China show is him, Ivan, who lives in Kiev. So he's in the front lines, and also Jonathan Lockwood, who was a member of some security conferences and security kind of organizations in various administrations. I think that's fair to say, Sasha, and all along those lines. But those are his regulars. And then he does modern investment with Milan, a friend of his in Canada, Jim Eade, and occasionally others come on as well because he is an investment guru and all along those lines. I hope you don't mind me calling you a guru, Sasha, and all in that way. And then last but not least, he is a chess master along with his wife, and they do Chess Stars on Saturday. We record it usually on Thursday or Fridays, but the show actually airs on a Saturday. So, Sasha, say hello to your fellow Canadian, Mr. John.
Yes, I'm saying hello as a fellow Canadian, and tell us more about yourself and what your fancy.
Hi, yeah, my name is John. I'm from Toronto. So, as I was saying to Mark before this started, I see a lot of posts from Nicholas, and I try to push back on a lot of his posts. I just found out from Mark that, he said a lot of them are tongue in cheek. I don't take them as tongue in cheek. Hey, I see Jotovi shaking his head. I treat people seriously, especially posts. I'm glad to hear, Mark, that you are a journalist, or you have that background. This whole idea of yellow journalism, if that's what Nick is doing, I'll put it this way: I'll continue to push back on any memes that Nicholas puts out that I find dubious, especially certain claims, and I'll continue doing that. And if he's a serious person, I thought he was. It sounds like he might not be, or he's doing this, I don't know, for entertainment. If that's the case, that's unfortunate, because in this time and place, especially the way the States are, the nature of politics these days, as a Canadian, I don't really like. How's that?
Yeah, and by the way, Jacoby has some Canadian roots. His wife has got family in Canada, so he does go back and forth to Canada. I think he was just there not that long ago, even though he is more known here in the Carolinas, as am I, and everything like that. But he has definitely got some background in I'd say at least analysis, and maybe not as much media as I do, but he does have background in analysis and analyzing what's going on in the world. And I did see him shaking his head. I was telling John that I sometimes think that what Nick does is tongue in cheek. I know you don't always agree with me and think that he's being serious sometimes, but what is your take? Because he's reading these posts, he's seen them on Facebook, he's seen them on LinkedIn, and I think he's taking it seriously. But what is your take, Jacoby? Because I do sometimes think that it's tongue in cheek, but I could be wrong as well.
I mean, there are a few posts that are tongue in cheek, but no, there are some you can tell that Nick is actually taking them seriously. For example, when you bring up the transgender issues, which I don't think there are really any issues per se, but people want to make it into something that it's not. They're just people. Let people be people. But no, that's something that that does get up under Nick. The same thing with economic stuff. That's something that gets up under Nick, but then he bounces back and forth on where he goes with his economic stuff when he talks about the national debt, but then wants to gloss over what's going on right now in terms of the national debt stuff. But there are some things you can tell when it's tongue in cheek, but there, for the most part, yeah, there are things that are Nick. That is who he is, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's just who he is, and it's easy to play off something that becomes controversial as a joke, we've learned that pretty well by the whole Trump administration and everything that they do. Is, hey, I was only joking, but then you turn around and they're actually doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, these type of jokes impacts people, you know.
Yep.
As a Canadian, you know, initially maybe Trump was saying, you know, 51st state, Canada. No, no, sorry, you know, you know, with all the transgenders garbage that he posts, I think, you know, he does have some sort of personal problem with that whole
Hey,
idea.
John, just
I
really
don't know
quickly,
how
in
much.
that same realm and all along those lines, as a Canadian, I know Sasha's view about it, but as a Canadian, what was your thoughts when President Trump made this whole notion of Canada and the various provinces of Canada being the 51st state? Because that did seem to be something that he was somewhat
Very,
serious about, like he was somewhat serious about
it's
making Greenland
it's
a
very
state and everything like that. So, as a Canadian, what was your take when you
very
heard that?
very offended. How about we take California as our 11th province? Like, no, I'm sorry. Uh, you have to treat allies. I mean, of all the countries that, you know, America has, Canada is historically has been the closest, and you don't pull that. I'm sorry. Um, you know, but I do want to get back to the transgender because I do think Nick does have an issue with, for whatever reason, and I don't know if it's right wing. The impression I get, he probably does consume a lot of right wing propaganda. I'm going to use propaganda, talking points, and you know, because these culture wars is not good for, like, let's be, you know, prioritize transgenders really, you know, in sports, women's sports. You know, 100, I'm going to say 100, and maybe Sasha knows more about this, but from my understanding, the number of women in sports that are transgendered, you know, I'll be generous and say it's 100, really. And he's going off, you know, his sense of, in my opinion, his sense of priorities is misguided at best.
Yeah, Toby, what's your take on that, or Sasha as well? And I know you've had some thoughts around the whole transgender issue, and I did want to hear from you about Putin not showing up for the talks and everything. I know we talked about that earlier, but it's been confirmed that he did not show up this time around. So, any thoughts you have about both the transgender issue, but also what's going on with the Ukraine-Russia peace talks?
You
Yeah,
combine
you're
this.
the transgender.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Toby.
Oh, I was just going to say the transgender issue is ridiculous because, as John just pointed out, I mean, you're talking about 1% of the population, which has the highest suicide rate. And we're trying to treat them as second-class citizens, driving up their suicide rate even higher. They should be accepted as who they are. They're just people. I mean, they already have to abide by the rules that are already put out there by not only the NCAA, by different high schools, by different at the Olympics and so on and so forth. They abide by the rules if they're going to compete. I mean, you're looking at even less than 1% of the population that is actually competitive in these sports. And yet, we're, again, trying to make rules and regulations to treat them as second-class citizens, put them aside. And you shouldn't do that. Just let them compete. Let them be who they are. And then it's always funny to me how it turns into this, and it's a huge propaganda talking point. Oh, we're trying to protect the women. No, you're not. One, if you look at all the bills that you're putting in place of taking rights away from women, you're not trying to protect women. You're using that as a talking point to try and get on somebody's emotional side. And then on top of that, if you think about, if you're so adamant that transgender women are actually men, well, that would mean that transgender men are actually women in your eyes, and you want those individuals who've been taking testosterone, changing their bodies to fit their natural form as they feel it, to compete in women's sports. So therefore, you're taking this person who now has a beard that you want to compete in women's sports, and you're already seeing them as a man. Oh no, we can't do that. Well, you're not protecting women if you consider transgender men or transgender women to be men. Don't you consider transgender men to be women? So how are you protecting women? By forcing them
Yeah,
sports if you're so adamant about that. It's just it's
Jadovi, these are facts and statistics that we can throw out. Uh, it doesn't seem to matter one bit. I mean, it's like surprising or shocking that you throw these statistics, which I've done numerous times. It doesn't seem to hit home at all. So that tells
It's
me,
interesting.
you
yep.
know,
And I could
it's ideology. It's whatever. Um, anyway,
yeah, I completely agree. I mean, everything really, all these things that they say that they care about, they don't really care about. Is just it all boils down to I was going back and forth with somebody, and they boiled it down to, well, it's fun to troll the liberals and make them go crazy. Well, truthfully, so while you're trolling people, you're losing rights. Your people are dying because of the pandemic outbreaks. So it was never about all this other stuff. It's just that you just like seeing people mad. That's all. And
yeah,
because you love Trump, that's all you want is just seeing people mad.
yeah.
There's a lot of that going on and everything. Just as pivot, just really quickly, because I know there's a topic that he's very much interested in. I don't think we're having a Russia Ukraine show tomorrow. Because is your trip tomorrow, or is that next week and everything?
Mark, I just sent you email asking urgently send me a link for Ukrainian show tomorrow, but also Ukrainian links for the rest of the month. I can't find those links. I
I'll
remember,
resend them to you, but we can have a show tomorrow. I'll resend them to you
yeah,
because I wasn't
please.
sure whether you were going on vacation this week or next week. But
No,
what
no,
is your take on
I'm going
the
on vacation on Monday.
Monday? So we'll do Friday. I'll send you the one for Friday. No
No,
problem.
no, Monday. I'll tell you about US. I'm booking now a cruise in the Caribbean on the condition that the ship will not uh, go into any US ports. So it should not depart from Miami. I'd rather to depart from Puerto Rico or from Barbados or from Aruba, but not from United States. I don't want to go through United States customs and territory, check-ins and all that stuff. I just don't want to do it. So if I will not find one, no, I'm pretty sure I'll find one. There are cruises that are not. The only thing is this particular line that I want to get on Norwegian Cruise Line. Most of their cruise starting in Miami and ending in Miami. There is one cruise that starts in San Juan but ends in Miami anyway. So it's kind of a challenge. Maybe I'll just use different cruise line. So about
Yeah.
about Trump overall, he's doing from what it looks like tremendously well on his trip to Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. Where else he goes? I don't know where else. He's not going to Turkey because Putin is not coming there. So he was saying he would come if Putin would come, and Putin, I think, said the same thing. I will come if Trump will come. So it's not going anywhere. So they're both not coming. Zelensky is coming, and this is all a joke. You know what? It's very difficult to be too critical about Trump in that respect because the situation is still developing, and I'm wondering how much Trump can deny the saying that Putin is actually the huge and the only obstacle in a peace between Ukraine and Russia. And Trump is downplaying this and he's saying that, oh, give it a little bit more time, he will make the deal and all this stuff. It goes on now for 4 months, if not longer, and it will go for another several months perhaps. And in the meantime, every day people are being killed in Ukraine. Every day, and Russia is intensifying its attacks while pretending that they are involved in some peace negotiations, but it's not true. There are not real peace negotiations. It's all
Makes sense
delayed,
and everything.
and people are dying. Yeah,
Do you think Trump is being played by Putin?
I think he's being played by Putin, and I think that he wants to be played by Putin. Putin would not be able to do it without complete cooperation from Trump, and Trump is enjoying the process. I think. He believes that all these Western European leaders, they're all elected officials. They're like little managers that will be re-elected in 2, 3, 4, whatever years. So they're no entities that people like Trump or Putin would have to really take into consideration and listen what they have to say and so on. So both of them are ignoring them completely. In fact, you have to give due to Zelensky, who was fearless enough to confront Trump in the Oval Office in the White House. I don't think that any one of this, whether it's Starmer or Macron or anybody else, would be able to do it. Nobody. Zelensky is one of its kind. He's unique in that way that he confronted Trump and he became as the winner. Trump and J.D. Vance, all these people, they became a loser in minds of American people, and not only, but many other people who saw what's really happened at the White House.
Hey, John, just really quickly, out of curiosity, I know you got a question to Toby, and I'm actually going to switch to the phone just because it's easier for me and everything. But, John, just for those that are watching, share a little bit about your background, because I know that Sasha is Ukrainian. I know there's a lot of the background of Jatovi, and I don't need to go into it and everything, and people know my background. But since you're the newbie in the house, tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do. I know that you met Nicholas on Facebook and LinkedIn, but what is your background there in Canada? Are you a native Canadian, or are you in the field of finance, or what is your own background? If I can ask you that.
Sure. I'm 67 years old. I just retired for the second time. I have had a long IT career. So I'm based out of Toronto. I went to university in software engineering. Long career, 44 plus years as an independent contractor working at numerous, large Fortune 500, IBM, telecoms, banks, long history. So, like I said, I retired about a year and a half ago, and then, like the mafia, they pulled me back, and I just finished a contract. I will not. I will turn down any other contracts. I'm 67 years old. 44 plus years in IT is more than enough. So that's I'm Canadian born. My parents came to Canada in their 50s from Italy. Canada has welcomed many immigrants. There's not a lot, but there's some talk. I think it's Canada. We get kind of this upswelling from conservative, talking points from the States that is seeping in. Most Canadians, I would say, are immune to that because we have our own history. But there are some that kind of like what Trump is selling, but I hate it.
Interesting. So you're going to make a point, like I said, I'm going to switch off this computer and get off from the phone. So you'll take the lead, you and Sasha, for a minute with John. I'll be back shortly.
Oh, well, I was just going to bring up, because Sasha, when you were, I think we all believe that, yes, he's getting played by Putin. But I think the whole Middle East trip, I think he's gotten played by everybody. That he's a simpleton. All it is he's very transactional. You throw lavish gifts at him, and you can get whatever. So what I find very interesting, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, last I remember, Bashar al-Assad, who just got taken over and kicked out of Syria, but Syria had a connection with Russia. Hamas Hamas is tied to Qatar. Qatar is tied to Iran. Iran has a tie to the whole Middle East there, as well as Saudi Arabia. So the interesting piece I find is that he's still under the thumb of Putin in that whole sense. And where is his allegiance going to come with Netanyahu? Because that's another person he did not meet with out in the Middle East. So how is this powder keg not going to explode is my big question.
Well, Jito, you understand very simple things. Yes, he's very transactional person. He looks for financial gains more than anything else, and actually, that's the only thing what's important to him. So you understand very well why he didn't go.
For personal financial gains and his family,
Yeah,
not in the interests of America. Personal family. He's
okay.
got, relatives. He's got a son-in-law, tightly, in bed with the whole Middle East.
Well, you remember in his first cadence, his first trip was to Saudi Arabia. And what's happened is that his daughter and her husband, they got management of $100 million fund.
Two billion, 2 billion.
Later on, yes, it
Yeah,
grew. They started with 100
right.
million, and then it went eventually to $2 billion. That they're sitting very nicely on the management take of 2%, regardless how well or how bad the fund would perform. But in this situation, you have to appreciate the fact that Trump, if he would go to instead, say, Western Europe, let's say UK, France, Germany, Italy, take Israel as well. Would he get 747 from any of these countries? Absolutely not, but he's got it from Qatar. And if he would stop on the way to Qatar in Israel, he wouldn't get 747. He would get maybe 727 or something even worse. But by not stopping in Israel with his ally, he went on and got 747 and the other military orders from Saudi Arabia and all that stuff. So he's very focused, transactional, and that's where he's doing quite
But can
well.
I ask Joe Tovey, that you're the American? My understanding, there's a law. Like Hillary Clinton had to give back like a necklace. Isn't there like I can't pronounce it, but emoluments clause? You can't do this, and nobody in the GOP is saying peep. You're on mute.
Hmm.
Jatovi, you're on mute. Jatovi, you're on mute.
Sorry, there
Okay.
is the emoluments clause that is there. But what Trump did when he first got there is not only did he help out Elon Musk with clearing out all the individuals that would investigate him, he also cleared out all the investigators that would investigate Trump himself. He cleared out all the inspectors generals. He cleared out all the Democrat individuals that would be on any of the litigation side. So he can get away with anything. Pam Bondi's not going to come after him.
No, but
Nobody is.
The GOP itself, the party, historical party of law and order, like not a peep. Are they all complicit? Is it Trumpism?
So
You know,
the problem that is there, not only with all the stuff that I just said about the inspector generals, all the other stuff. What Lisa Murkowski said, that was the most important thing that must be pointed to. Lisa Murkowski said, yes, she has issues, but she's scared to speak up. And that's where the problem lies for many of the GOP individuals. There are people that have said stuff under anonymity, but they will not come out and speak it because they're afraid of not only the bullying, because I think it was not Mitch McConnell. Actually, it might have been Mitch McConnell or somebody. There was a book that was written after Trump's first term in office, how it talked about they were trying to do particular things and they would disagree with Trump, but in the GOP, they would get death threats. I think it was Mitt Romney, actually, who spoke up in a book about that. But that is where we're sitting, is we really have a mob-style government. It's a kleptocracy, but it's a mob-style government where, yes, Trump controls Pam Bondi, which is supposed to be the attorney general for the people, but she's not. She's the attorney general for Trump. Trump controls the court system, which the GOP had packed the courts prior, and that's how come they were winning a lot of these elections and a lot of the cases. But Trump has taken advantage of that part. Same thing with, all of the MAGA wing and so on and so forth. When he pardoned those individuals, that was one of the most scary things, because now he's creating his own army that will do whatever threat that he wants to put out there. So right now we're stuck.
So the Nickies of the world, I know he lives in Spain, so he probably doesn't, feel that personally or through his family. These people are smart. So, the dum-dums that support Trump, okay, they're dumb. But what I really, really have an issue with are the smart ones who go along. All right? That bothers me no end. Like, the Nickies of the world should know better.
But John, one of the things that came up in the election, and Rick brought it up several times, Rick is one of our other panelists, he was on World Edition, is that it's probably about roughly 33% that voted for Trump, roughly 33% that voted for Kamala, but there's another 33% in the United States that did not vote at all. They just sat on their hands. I call them to sit on their hands, and everything, because...
So the majority of people who voted in this election voted for somebody else other than Trump. Kamala Harris did get a particular amount. There were third-party candidates that got a particular amount. But yes, there were a lot that sat on their hands, correct. The problem is, and I agree with what John is saying, that there are individuals that really know better, like who want to preach about, honestly, I'll even bring up Shaq. I'll bring up Adam. I'll even bring up Nick. All those individuals are smart enough to know better. But the problem is we've run into a situation where we're cheering for our teams more so than we're cheering for what's right and what's wrong. And that's where the problem is. And I think, honestly, John, you're at the same place that I am. You know better. People know better. But because that's your team, you're going to allow this to happen. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be, hey, we know every person who comes into the U.S., according to the Constitution, gets due process and has the habeas corpus and all the other stuff. When this administration talks about, hey, we're taking it away, that shouldn't be.
Right. That's an American thing. Like I said, I lived in Canada all my life. I voted. We have a Liberal Party that's a center left. I voted for them. I voted for Progressive Party, which is center right. I'm not married to a political party. I try the best I can to look at their policies. I'm on no team. This idea that Americans, and I know that's the case, this will be the end of America if this doesn't stop. I'm seriously, I hope you got 3 years of more of this crap. I hope it holds. I see hope. I'll continue to be a belligerent optimist, but I'm not impressed at all.
I mean, you are spot on. And there are cracks that are starting to form in the U.S. democracy. When we're talking about the Supreme Court giving immunity to anything that Donald Trump does or that the president does. Now they're talking about removing birthright citizenship from the Constitution, or actually the case is more so about, can a lower court hold up some legislation that is being challenged in one particular state, which has always been part of our constitution, part of our, checks and balance system. But we now have a we now have a administration that's pushing the limits on that and testing those boundaries. We legitimately have Pam Bondi, an attorney general who really does more to protect Trump rather than doing anything for the people. All she does is, she'll defend him in every way possible,
That's
just
why he
like
picked
any
her.
other Trump fan.
Right.
Yep,
That's why,
exactly.
and
And
that's why he only picks loyalists. Right.
exactly.
So
He does. The same with the new Surgeon General. The Surgeon General never isn't even a medical professional, but she's picked because she's loyal to Trump. That's why. So it's sad where we are, and there are so many cracks that are starting to form in the foundation of the democracy of the U.S. What you're saying, it's a fear that many people have, and it's a legitimate fear because there are a lot of people who aren't protecting that democracy. They're just allowing it to fail because it's my team. My team is this team, and you don't like my team because you don't like what he says. No, I don't like what he says because the policy is wrong and he's pushing racism. He's pushing genocide and apartheid. Genocide in Gaza and apartheid in South Africa. So why am I going to cheer that on? No, we need to legitimately be able to call these things out.
right, and the problem is that here there's 3 of us or 4 of us. We, I'm going to say we're all on the same team. So we're preaching to the choir here. I think.
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly on Sasha's where he comes on, but we need to talk to the Trumpers in a way that will kind of get through to their brains. I don't, and I've tried, not Nick, Nikki, but others in my, friends, and it's hard. Like it's
To be practical, Trump is going to stay in power for another 3.5 years, regardless of what you're going to do. So, what's the best strategy for Democrats? Just to hide for the next 3.5 years and then see what they can do, or they have
No,
to start to prepare.
audio.
They have to prepare to the midterm elections, and they have to try to play the cards what they got, and they are 100% responsible for the cards what they got because they had to appoint. Sorry, they had to hire the personal counsel to prosecute Donald Trump a year earlier. They were late. And by that time, he was able to prepare his defense, consolidate his people, and started to fight already for a presidency. And it be with the, of course, cooperation from the Supreme Court, he was able to withstand dozens of charges, very serious charges, that and some of them he could have even got jailed. Not only that he was not jailed, he was able to defeat essentially or delay all the charges and became president, beating Democrats. So you should not take so easily responsibilities of Democrats away. They've done a horrible damage to the democracy in America. They brought Trump to power because there was simply no.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you on one point. I'm not gonna blame the Democrats for this situation that America finds itself with Trumpism. I'm not
Well,
gonna do that.
they are at fault, and they, in my opinion, are responsible that Trump was able even to be nominated as a president, because if they would on time prosecute him and locked him in jail, there would be no Trump president. They may still lose an election to somebody else. That would be possible, but it would be much better outcome to
I,
have anybody but Trump.
I think that's an easy out. I understand. I've heard this argument before. I place the blame on the GOP itself, allowing a felon to be president, allowing him to, do what he does without a peep. So maybe this gets to what Jotovi was saying about, the team, support the leader. This is not going to be to the benefit of America and for the rest of the world.
No, listen, I'm not trying to defend Trump or his supporters. First of all, they don't need me to defend them. They can do it themselves and quite well. And second of all, Trump, he has certain qualities that allow him to unite all these losers and all these people who voted for him and make them feel as they're part of something great. And he's very good as manipulating all that. And he proved it time and time again. That's what he's doing right now. The Democrats, they did a horrible job during their term. They had Biden, who was unable to do anything well before he stepped down in favor of Kamala Harris. He should have done it 6 months prior to that, if not a year prior to that. But he was too thirsty just to be at power, and he even the way he did it, he should have completely resigned, let Kamala become a president, and then she would run a capable campaign. She would lose. She could win.
Do you think that would have mattered in the slightest?
She would have maybe a fighting chance.
And maybe Mark, you can speak to this because you're American. I'm not. A black woman president down in Republican parts of the states, Florida, Texas. No way in hell.
I think she would have a fighting chance. Probably she would lose, to tell the truth, but at least she would mobilize all her voters, and she would feel more secure, because I remember many interviews where she was asked what she would do differently from Joe Biden, and she couldn't answer the question straight, because of course she would do something different, but then she would defend her still a boss, and she was not prepared to go that far, and therefore it would be very difficult. And it was very difficult for her to win the presidency. She couldn't do it, and but again, I think that Trump has to be thankful for his victory to Democrats. They did absolutely incredibly poor job. They've just collapsed, actually, that's the right word. They've collapsed, and look at where they are today. They have no leaders, they have no ideas, they are nowhere, they're hiding, and they have to come up with some ideas.
Yeah, so instead of that, we have a cult leader.
I'm not trying to defend what Trump is doing. Whatever he's doing, that's his. I'm talking about Democrats.
Right, yeah.
Democrats are being defeated. They're in hiding. They have no new leaders. They have nothing to say, no ideas, nothing. I don't know how much time they need to get out of this malaise, but that's where they are.
Yeah, I remember right before Obama came onto the political scene, this kind of talk, the history happened before, and I'm not predicting the future. Will there be some sort of person that comes up and takes the Democratic Party with a progressive, I don't know if that works these days down in the States, a liberal progressive kind of agenda, the rights of blacks and gays and et cetera, whether that will work, because I think Trump has damaged a lot of that way of thinking that America used to be proud of. Like, I mean, bring us your poor. It says right on the Statue of Liberty. And so these ideals, it's kind of sad that Trump has been able to, and maybe it was always under the, under the surface, that people, for whatever reason, racism, bigotry, whatever you want to call it, it's very upsetting as a Canadian, because that's I'm assuming you're a Canadian and you're immigrant. I value those liberal progressive ideas.
Well, I don't know what else new I can say, because you know about Trump, everything what there is to know. I'm not going to defend him. He doesn't need my defense. But he's that's another thing what makes him unique in a way, that he mastered a complete control over GOP. Complete control. Even some people like Nikki Haley, who is a very capable person, and where is she now? Nowhere to be seen. She disappeared, because anybody who could confront Trump would disappear. So people in GOP understand, if they will confront him on any issue, even very insignificant, they will be obscured and they will never win any election again. So that would be the price what they have to pay. And what that means, it means a salary of $175,000 a year and free parking at the Dallas airport. And they don't want to lose the job, they don't want to lose the free parking at Dallas airport. So therefore they have to all the time be committed to Trump, to everything what he says, everything what he does, unconditionally. And that's how he mastered it.
Yeah, so I'm more interested in finding out, for the future. And you touched on the Democratic Party. Yeah, they got to figure out how to resist Trumpism for the next 3 years. But for the people themselves, or the population, and here we are, two Canadians talking, but they got to figure that out. What do they want? Like, they want Trumpism? I don't
No,
think
they don't want a Trumpism, but what are they offering as alternative? They don't have anything.
Right,
They're
right.
empty-handed.
Right.
Okay, Trump is bad and Trumpism is horrible, or so
Right.
on. So give us some goods. Well, what are you offering?
What do you think will work?
Nothing.
Like in terms of strategy to resist the allure. I'm going to be generous and say the allure of Trumpism, in terms of an alternative message, because I think media companies like Fox, a lot of podcasts, a lot of media infrastructure, they kind of support each other in terms of, one message. And the left, I'm going to say, the Democratic, those media companies don't exist, or they're very small. Joe Rogan in the past was a Democrat, but now he's, full on board. I haven't watched him lately, so maybe he's having second thoughts. I don't know. The Ben Shapiro's, even him is, but who knows? I think the left or the media has to find a way to come across to the American public, to provide a message that resonates, that fights back against Trumpism. I don't know how that happens, or if that even will happen, but I hope it does.
Well, I think Democrats have to look deep inside to find the true leader who will provide leadership and confront Republicans wherever it's possible. And there are many areas where it's possible to confront them, but they need a leader who is capable of actually running the show. Right now, they don't have a leader, obviously. And before they will find a leader, I'm very skeptical that they will be able to do anything at all beside hiding and just biding their time.
So okay, so let's put the tape forward 3 years from now.
Mhm.
What's after Trump on the GOP side?
After Trump,
Yeah, Vance.
we don't. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be any better situation
No,
for.
that's what I'm saying is that
It's not.
the allure of Trump was a cult. I mean, to me,
Well,
that
first of all, don't count him out. He may still run for 2028 and
yeah.
still be a
So
president.
so much for the Constitution. I mean, again, the GOP talks about law and order. Okay,
Well,
let's throw out that because who needs that in the Constitution? Yeah, well, this to me,
who needs a law or order if convicted felon could become president of the United
sure,
States? A
yeah,
conman, a criminal. What
of
kind of a
course,
law you are talking about? There is no law
of
at
course,
all. So Trump will do if he feels like he wants to run for third term,
right. He
he will
will.
do it. He will
Absolutely.
do it
And Nikki,
100%.
the Nikis of the world will support him. This to me is what's shocking. This is what to me is shocking. Nikki
Because
as a lawyer,
and look, everybody is scared of Trump. Anyone, GOP people, not GOP people, everybody is scared because let's see if he will take a company that would not support him 100% or 150%. If he will ask for a company like Nvidia to invest half $1 trillion, they will turn around and invest $1.5 trillion because if they will not support him, he will send an army of detectives and IRS and lawyers and auditors and so on. It will be the end of the
so
company.
that to me, what you're describing is Russia.
Yeah, that's why he loves Putin, and
Right.
that's why he's learning everything from
Right.
Putin. So absolutely, yeah, United
You know, I
States.
don't know how old you are. I'm 67. To
Yeah,
me, as a northern neighbor, you emigrated to Canada.
yeah.
I've seen again, America, kind of stand up for the world and doing the right thing. Sometimes they come close to doing not the right thing, but they always find a way to come back to do the right thing. This is what is shocking to me.
Unfortunately, I agree with you. Yes, it is shocking, and I blame only Democrats for what's happening in
Yeah.
America. Only Democrats, because even people who voted for Trump, they didn't expect such a massive uh, bombardment on foreign policy and internal policies and everything else. They didn't expect that. But
Well, the economy. They kept
but Trump
saying,
was Trump was prepared very well to this term, and he is doing fantastic job from his own perspective. What he wanted to do, he does that and even more. And Democrats are they're in coma. They are in horrible shape. Really, listen. I
yeah,
don't know what.
what you're describing is Russia. I mean, that's
Well, Russia was a country. Soviet Union was a country of one party.
yeah,
So there was one party. Whatever they decided, that was the right way. And I think in the United States we are coming to that
yeah.
because the Democrats basically they dissolve their party, if not formally. Right now, they don't exist.
Yeah, I understand the argument. I'm not
Yeah.
100% sold on it.
Okay. No, that's okay. I'm talking about reality. Where you see Democrats? What is their message? How you able to find it? I can't, but maybe you know how to find it.
No, I mean the message again, from Harris, the future, progressive, no, but not too progressive. They try to bring in some of the, kind of right wing, with the military. I think she tried. She wasn't successful because Americans that didn't vote for her didn't buy what she was selling. I think that a lot of them, that say the independents, the ones in the middle, there's always going to be 25, 30% a cult that no matter what Trump does, they will say, yes, no problem.
Okay.
But I think for for Democrats voted for Kamala, and there was a lot of Democrats that didn't vote for anybody because they were confused as hell. And I understand that. But then there's another portion in the middle who just wanted lower inflation, and the Democrats wasn't able to say or their economic policies weren't messaged correctly. And I think that's an issue. Now, that middle portion, I'd like to find out what they think now. Like, again,
Well, listen, we cannot help Democrats one way or another.
no.
They have to fix the problems themselves.
And they won't listen to us anyway.
They
So,
need a new leader. The leader has to articulate exactly what Democrats are standing for, to find some criticism about Trump and what he's doing. They have to do the job. If they cannot find the leader, if they cannot articulate what they stand for, nobody needs this party. They have to might as well start a new party.
Mark, what do you think about it? I know you're the producer. Maybe you don't have, here we are, two Canadians talking about American politics. It feels kind of strange. Jatovey's gone. I guess his phone died or whatever. I'm always curious to know from the Americans' point of view. I can't hear you. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. I put it in the chat. So.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. We're two Canadians, and the Trumpers aren't on. I was more interested in, trying to have a conversation with Trumpers, more from an understanding. I do kind of understand where they're coming from. Maybe Jotovey's right. It's this team approach is maybe the why reasoning, but I don't know.
Well, anyway, I think we've done our best to articulate our views.
Yeah.
We may disagree on something and agree on some other things.
Yeah, that's okay. We're not going to fight each other.
Okay. In any case, all the best to you.
We finish at 6?
I'm going away for, it's almost 2 minutes to 6. I'm going away on Monday for 3 weeks. So
enjoy.
Yeah, sure.
Why aren't you going to the ports of America?
No. This trip is to Europe. I'm going to Poland, Latvia, Czech Republic. And
so you mentioned the cruise that you're not.
Later on, I'm planning cruise.
And that's because you don't want to take a risk of being stopped, or.
I don't want to be stuck in U.S. port for some reason.
That's a wise thing.
I mean, there is nothing for me to be afraid of.
Right.
I'm not a criminal or anything, but when you have people talk a lot about freedom of speech. And my position is you have freedom of speech only when you have $25,000 retainer for a lawyer. Because without that, you have no freedom, no speech, nothing. Right. And you can be put in jail and nobody will help you except a lawyer, but you have to pay your lawyer.
I, for one, am glad that I live in Canada.
Yeah. So, I'm glad too.
Enjoy your trip.
Okay, thank you. And all the best to you, John.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.